If you've just joined us, our guest on this episode of Question Time is the Acting Director General of the Bureau of Public Enterprise, and we're looking at the sale of some government assets and institutions. Is this the way to go? Is the public being shortchanged? And are these sales meeting up to the public demands? Don't go away. How do you ensure that the BPE staff are insulated from having vested interest in some of this privatized enterprise in terms of ensuring neutrality?
In the course of our project review, if we find anything of that nature, because we review our processes from time to time. Since I came on board, I have initiated steps to actually review and bring out the lessons learned from some of the transactions I inherited. Some of the transactions that had been done at the time I took over. We had reviewed some of this.
How transparent would you say many of these transactions are?
They are quite transparent. I've not seen anything that throws up those transactions as lacking in transparency. Some of the outcomes of those transactions may not have been exactly as designed, if you like, and as intended. But those are issues coming out of a management process. And how we respond in our post-privatization monitoring, again, defines the impact that such transactions bring into the economy.
What are you doing to ensure that Nigeria is not shortchanged in many of these transactions?
When I came on board, the first place I visited was the management team of the ICPC. And what did I go there for? I wanted them to be able to give me a backroom check on potential investors that are going to invest in anything we want to do going forward. I want to be able to, when I receive bids, while doing the general evaluation, I want to be able to have some form of check to ensure that money launderers are screened away from our investments, because whatever they are bringing on board is not sustainable, cannot sustain the business. Two, we have to be sure that those who claim to have XY in terms of requirements to qualify for bid, they actually have those qualifications. They have the financial backbone to be able to sustain their investments. These are things oftentimes you cannot check on the basis of the documents submitted to us. The documents submitted, we review them, we look at them more or less on the strength of what they contain.
Now let's move over to the mining sector, where there is a huge controversy on the concessioning of the Nigerian Iron Ore Mining Corporation to the GINL. Who is responsible for this concessioning?
Well, my answer is that I have no clue. I don't know.
Should the BPE have been involved in this concessioning deal?
Again, concession, strictly speaking today, is the responsibility of ICRC. I say responsibility not because ICRC needs to drive the process, but they need to regulate the process. ICRC regulates the concession templates and the concession environment in Nigeria today. So, in the days when ICRC was not there, the BPE concessioned the Nigerian ports, if you recall. We did it successfully, and the ports are there, they are running, subject to some of the post-privatization management issues, which are not necessarily localized within the BPE. Some of them are global issues affecting government. For example, the number of agencies in the ports that you have to pass through, the number of signatures you require to clear goods. Those are things that BPA has cried itself hoarse about over the years. But that is one. But since the ICRC came on board, concession is handled strictly by the agencies and their supervising ministries under the regulatory framework of ICRC. So our role in any of the concessions you see today are simply what you might call more like advisory support, providing capacity to the agencies and the ministries to be able to handle what legally under the ICRC Act is their responsibility.
Now, let's look at federal government policy options now. This administration seems to be tilting towards more on concessioning than outright privatization. Between concessioning and outright privatization, which do you think is a more economically viable option?
The strategy of either using privatization or concession or commercialization is defined by the nature of the subject matter. Take, for instance, you want to do rail concessions. You want to build new rail lines. What is there to privatize? Nothing. Are you with me? You want to build roads. You can't sell roads to anybody or any company. So there are certain infrastructure upgrade that requires concession as a strategy. There are others that require privatization as a strategy. And I can start, for instance, by drawing your attention to industrial complexes, like Ajaokuta, for instance. Concessioning Ajaokuta will not encourage investors to bring money in there. An investor who brings his money into Ajaokuta is bringing it on the understanding that he owns equity in Ajaokuta. If you give him a 30-year program on Ajaokuta, a complex that is as expensive as $10–15 billion or even more, you expect him to bring in additional investment to kick it off. And you are telling him, okay, we'll concession it to you for 30 years. What is he going to achieve in 30 years? That will restrict his ability to openly invest. And what are we suggesting about Ajaokuta? We are saying Ajaokuta is too big for one single investor. We believe, and it's a study that we are currently undergoing. We believe very strongly, yes, that there is a need to unbundle Ajaokuta. Now, that will bring into this country an influx of investment funds. Influx in the sense that is one great advantage. You will have, Ajaokuta has about 43 different plants. You have an electricity plant, you have all kinds of plants, one feeding into the other. So it's an integrated system. So each of them almost autonomous, if not completely autonomous. If you unbundle this and you sell equity on this to different investors, you will now have, let us say, about 30–40 investors bringing their monies from different places to invest in Ajaokuta at a given time. Now, all these 40 investors will not fail at the same time. Are you with me? They will not fail at the same time. Two, each one provides raw material. The product of one of the plants serves as raw materials for the next plant. So you will find that each plant supports the other. Each plant is a market to the other. So if you have that kind of scenario, what benefits are you bringing? One, you don't have one single investor running from pillar to post looking for that size of investment. You are looking for serious money. But you have component plants that you can easily develop models, financial models for, that you can easily approach international financiers for. And they look at it, they look at your financial model, your operational models, and they are satisfied that, look, there's a market for this business right there in that plant. Believe you me, they will go into it.
What is responsible for many of these strategies that have been found to work brilliantly outside the country and now finding it difficult to provide solutions to our own immediate problems in the country?
There is a need to revisit the framework under which Nigeria carries out most of this financial management of its investments. There's a need to revisit the framework. There are too many interest groups in every transaction in Nigeria. Too many interest groups. You can't hold a single entity responsible for what happens in a particular transaction, simply because the interests that transaction is carrying, the inputs come from everywhere. We're not saying inputs should not come from stakeholders, but stakeholder input should not be confused with the strategy for running a particular transaction.
And that's it on this episode of Question Time. You may also send us a comment on our various social media platforms showing on your screen. Join us next week on another exciting episode of the show on Channels Television. Many thanks for watching. I'm Benga Ashuru. Bye for now.